Growing up, I was pretty independent. I loved every new marker of growing up and what it brought to bring me closer and closer to being an adult and being a grown-up. One of those things that I was so excited for was getting my driver's license, turning 16 during my sophomore year, but with that was getting my first job. Through high school or before I was able to get my driver's license, I babysat for neighbors or I helped with yard work or whatever I could to make a little bit of money here or there. But I was so thrilled to get my first job. There's something about it that felt like it was mine. I was owning something. I had even more independence because then I was making my own money that I could spend the way that I wanted to. My first job was in a little town. I grew up in Pulaski, and it was at a little family business. That was a printing shop. And so I got to count t-shirts as they came in. I got to sort them, make sure everything was there. I got to organize inventory, sort thread to make sure it was all like in perfect order. I was able to file things and package up orders for customers. It was everything that I love. I love organizing, I love having everything in a system, and I love processes and procedures, and so this job was perfect for me. It was everything that I thought that I wanted in a job. My second job, while I was working at this other shop part-time, was, get this, I got to socialize puppies. That's right, I was paid $10 an hour to play with puppies. So I would show up at this woman's house, and she was she bred dogs for a living, and so she would, I would show up at her house, and I would go and play with the litter of puppies so that they were used to being with people and used to being handled and all of that, and I would play and play and play and play and play, and then I would tire them out, they would take a nap, and then I would go and help with other things around the farm. I would clean stables or play with the other animals or help with grooming or you name it. I loved my first couple of jobs. They were absolutely perfect for me, and I honestly think that they were a gift from God. I love that I was able to make my own money and then do with it what I want, that I was able to provide for myself, and that I was able to be a blessing to other people. That when friends needed a couple extra bucks so that they could come spend time with us at McDonald's, I could just buy their meal, or that I could give to a donation if I felt led to do that, or what have you. I had money that I was able to do that for, or do that with. We've been in the book of Proverbs this summer so far, just looking at wisdom and the wisdom literature and everything that Proverbs has to offer us, because there's a lot in there that we can learn about, especially in today's muddy world where things just seem to be very unclear. And tonight I get to talk to you, and we get to talk a little bit about work. I'm going to show you how work has been given to us from God to provide for ourselves and to care for others. From the very beginning of time, there has been work. God created, and in Genesis it says, and when the work was done, God rested. God rested, and God had worked, and then God rested, and then he gave us work. Adam and Eve worked. Cain and Abel worked. Noah worked. Ruth worked. The Israelites worked. Everyone worked. You cannot find a biblical narrative or a biblical story without work. Everyone worked. It was just a part of what God gave us as human beings. And think about this for a second. God didn't have to create things this way. I know that this is going to seem a little bit crazy or abstract or something like that, but God didn't need for us to work. He could have created fields that planted themselves, grew themselves, harvested themselves, and then just appeared in our refrigerators for us to eat. He could have given us the brains that he could just download information into, just like an iOS system, that we never had to study or think super hard, and we never really had to work at learning. He could have made buildings to just build themselves, like something that we see in like crazy cartoons or in sci-fi movies or something like that. God could have created things like that, but he didn't. God gave us work. as a good thing. We have to exercise if we want to stay in shape. That is a good thing. We have to work to get a paycheck to pay for our groceries. That is a good thing. We have to work to learn something and to study and to know how to do something. I worked to prepare this message to share with you. It is a good thing. God has given us work. Work has been given to us from God. God created us and intends for us to work and enjoy the fruit that we put into. Now, if you have a Bible, go ahead and open it up. It might be hard if your Bible is the screen that you're watching, but if you have another Bible, open up to Proverbs chapter 12, verse 14. It says this: "From the fruit of their lips, people are filled with good things, and the work of their hands bring them reward." The work of their hands bring them reward. Now think about that for a second. Is there something that you work at that you enjoy the fruit that you reap afterwards? What is something that you do that you enjoy the fruit of the work that you put in? Meaning, what's something that requires work, but it feels good to have it done? For me, it's cleaning my house. Now, I don't always love dusting or love vacuuming or love folding laundry and putting it all away, but it feels good to me for my house to be clean and for my laundry to be done. I'm pretty task oriented, and so I really like it when I can check something off of a list and I know that something's complete, or when I can see the progress that I'm making. And cleaning my house allows me to do that. Someone else might say that gardening is that for them, that they love at the beginning of the season, digging up the earth to create a space for their garden and then planting their seeds and then caring for them and weeding and watering when needed. And then I see that my neighbor has these funny cardboardy things that flip open to shade his plants for an appropriate amount of time, and then they flip back down when they're supposed to. And I know that my neighbor Joe, he loves his garden. He loves that he's able to work for the food that then he has later. That is some fruit that he enjoys. Work, just like having a garden, work allows us to provide for ourselves. At the end of the book of Proverbs, the last chapter is a well-known passage that a mother is writing or speaking to her son about what kind of a woman he should look for as a wife. And it is often used for women as kind of a guide for character and what kind of woman you should be as a godly woman. Now, I want to talk about a couple of the verses here because it talks about how an honorable woman and a noble woman, how she works hard. But guys, that doesn't mean that you get to check out. Okay, the Bible was written for everyone, and everyone can always glean something from what the Bible is saying. And so just because this is called Proverbs 31, it's the Proverbs 31 woman, that doesn't mean that 50% of the population gets to dismiss this. So guys, stick with me, even though it's talking about being a good wife and what a godly woman looks like. So we're going to look at chapter 31, and it's verses 13, 17, and 31. Verse 13 says this: "She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She sets apart her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks." This is verse 17. I'll read that again. Verse 17 says, "She sets apart her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks." And then 31 says this: "Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate." These verses show us how a woman of noble character willingly works with energy, and that people notice that she's a hard-working woman. Being a hard worker is a characteristic that other people notice. Have you ever noticed when after a party or after maybe you're all hanging out at somebody's house and you have to clean up a little bit, just throw away the trash and put things back where they belonged. That you notice the one person who's not working hard, or the one person who seems to like always leave just before the work needs to happen. We notice when people aren't working hard, but we also notice when people do work really hard. Being a hard worker is a characteristic that other people notice and admire. And as followers of Jesus, we should be the hardest workers. This passage is showing us how the woman works really, really hard, and she doesn't rely on somebody else to provide for her. She's out there, it says, selecting her wool and flax. She works vigorously. She's strong. The work that she does do brings praise from the city. People notice that this woman provides for herself and that she's not just relying on everyone else to work for her and then kind of serve her. Making other people provide for us or depending fully and completely on them, well, that's laziness. And Proverbs 26:15 says it this way: a sluggard buries his hand in the dish. He is too lazy to bring it back to his mouth. A sluggard buries his hand in the dish. He's too lazy to bring it back to his mouth. That's a really funny verse to me. It's saying something like somebody has food in front of them and they see it and they want it, but it's just too hard to get it to their mouth, so they're just not going to eat. It would be like this. It would be like if I had this bag of Chex Mix and I was so hungry and I was just consistently complaining about just how hungry I was, and if only I had something to eat, but I'm holding this in my hand. You would say, Ellen, pull yourself together, open up the Chex Mix and eat it. And I would say something like, it's too hard. I can't do it. It's too much for me. You would dismiss me in a second. You're like, whatever, Ellen, you are super on your own. Like if you can't figure out how to open up that bag of chips and reach in and bring them to your mouth, like I can't help you. You are on your own. A sluggard buries his hand in the bag of dish and is too lazy to bring it to his mouth. Another verse, chapter 10, verse 4 says this: lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Now, I can guess where your brain might be tempted to go. You are probably hearing this passage and hearing lazy hands make for poverty. And you're imagining that the Bible is saying that people are in poverty, or people are living in poverty or experiencing homelessness because they are lazy. So now is the time that I want to remind you that Proverbs are not promises. These are not hard and fast rules. This is not like a math equation that it all equals out absolute at the end. Instead, these are like general principles that are helpful in life. What this is not saying is that if someone is living in poverty, that is because they are lazy. That is not the absolute sentence that the passage is saying here. A lot of us have been able to spend time with some people in Green Bay who are experiencing homelessness. We have either made a meal for Freedom House. Last year, we made all of those meals. If you remember, for St. John's Homeless Shelter, we made the breakfast items. Anybody who's gone on any of our Green Bay missions trip have gotten a chance to hang out at the New Community Shelter and learn about experiencing homelessness, or St. John's. And so I hope that we all know that poverty does not happen, or homelessness does not happen out of pure laziness. And so that is something that I don't want you to be gaining from this passage. What we are not saying is that laziness is the reason for poverty. I do think, though, that this is saying is that we can learn that laziness doesn't bring us wealth. That if we don't do anything ever, if we're constantly just sitting on our couch, just waiting for things to appear in our lives, that wealth is not going to stumble upon us. And when I say wealth, I don't just mean financial. I don't mean just money. I mean the wealth of knowledge, knowing things. I mean the wealth of a healthy body and moving and exercising. I mean the wealth of doing well in sports, the wealth that you get from maybe having the lead in the play, or honestly even making it another level in Fortnite. I don't know. There is truth in saying that generally laziness doesn't bring success. That if you are lazy and that you don't work hard, that things aren't going to just magically appear from the sky into your lap. That everything in life requires some work. Remember how we talked about God created life to require work. Otherwise, I think that we would all be robots. We would all be so different. We would never have to work for anything or try to attain another level or attain more knowledge or any of that kind of stuff, because God would just do it for us, and we would just download into our brain, and we would all be robots, and we would all be the same shape because we were perfectly fit or something like that. Laziness does not bring success, and it does not bring wealth. Work has been given to us from God to provide for ourselves. With all of that said, there is a time and a place that we need to allow others to provide for us. Work has been given to us from God to provide for ourselves and to care for others. Think of a time maybe that you have cared for somebody else. Maybe that's picking up somebody's books that fell out of their backpack in class, or maybe that was mowing your neighbor's lawn or shoveling their driveway. Maybe that was taking an extra shift for somebody at work because they needed to be with their family for something. When Henry was born, there were a lot of people who rallied around Alex and I and helped us. We were busy working to provide for Henry. Having a baby for the first time is really quite intimidating, and it's a lot. There's a lot of things to balance with. When does he need to eat, and is he tired or is he hungry? What does this cry mean? Is he doing okay? Is he too hot? Is he too cold? What is that little spot on his skin? All of the questions first-time parents have. And so as much as we were working to care for Henry, other people came in and cared for us. My mom and Alex's mom came in and they took care of things around the house. They washed bottles for us or swept the floor or whatever it was that we needed that they could see. Countless people brought us meals so that we didn't have to think about what to make for dinner or, honestly, grocery shop. We had so many meals that I didn't even have to think about grocery shopping. We had friends who would come and just hang out with us and talk to us and listen to the things that we were experiencing and thinking and new stresses and anxieties of having a baby. And so other people worked hard for us. And that was a huge blessing to us. God gave us work so that we can care for others. Work allows us to bless others and to care for others. And that doesn't always mean financially. Nobody wrote us a check when we had our baby. But the things that they did do that was work for them was the sweeping the floor and bringing us meals and everything like that. Sometimes caring for other people and working for other people means babysitting, just offering to babysit. It means shoveling a driveway. It means just grabbing your neighbor's mail and bringing it up for them. Ephesians 4:28 says it super perfectly. Anyone who has been stealing must steal no longer, but must work, doing something useful with their own hands, that they may have something to share with those in need. Work has been given to us from God to provide for ourselves and to care for others. I want to challenge all of us that the work that you do, no matter how that looks, to do it well. God has given us the opportunity and the privilege and the blessing of being able to work. And the best way that we can praise God for our ability to work is by working really hard. Work hard and serve others well. So while you're working hard to learn a new subject, to do well on the soccer field, to get another level in Fortnite, to get that paycheck, to provide for your family, whatever it is. Do that really well, and also serve others and care for others really well. By serving others, we have an opportunity and we can show how God has provided for us and how good and loving He is. Because after all, He gave us work so that we can provide for ourselves and we can provide for others. We can do that really well and honor Him.